And you no longer look at these categories as just categories. So I can replace everything with vegetables or fruits. I can say apples, oranges, pears, bananas, kiwis, peaches, and I can write the exact same report. And I could say 20% of the fruit eaten by the students in that particular university was apple, whereas kiwi comprised only 15%. How many languages do you speak? Oh yes, of course, apart from English. Because if you couldn't speak English or understand English, you wouldn't be sitting here at the IELTS Juice YouTube channel. In that case, very warm welcome to you. We're going to assess a task 1 report and we're going to improve it to 7. So let's start improving, analyzing, and assessing this task 1 rubric. It says, the charts below show the proportions of British students at one university in England who were able to speak other languages in addition to English in 2000 and 2010. So here are the elements. We have charts. What the charts are, I see one pie chart, I see two pie charts, that's it. So our charts, plural, are two pie charts. And then I want to see what it shows. So my question is, what does it show? I mean, all these numbers and colors, what do they mean? And they are a percentage. So this 10 means 10% of students. Yeah, and these students are British. And there is a university, we don't know which university, we don't have the name of that university in England, who were able to speak other languages. I see a past tense, so it kind of gives away that the information is in the past. So basically, we have the percentages of students who spoke another language or maybe more than one language other than English. In addition to English, yes, that's correct. In 2000 and 2010. All right, what's the focus? 1, the location. It's a university only, a particular university. It's not generic. It's not about all universities. And that particular university is located in England. That's the location. We know that. How about time? We also have time. There are two pie charts and we have two time frames, 2000 and 2010. There are two isolated time frames. We don't have the information in between. We just have 2 points of information and both are bravo in the past. So we use past simple tense because it has nothing to do, the information here has nothing to do with present, because it's not about future, because we know exactly what time the information is presented to us. The fourth thing is, what's significant? What is significant here? The largest piece, like this is a pizza, the largest piece is this blue one, which is Spanish only. This means the students of that particular university were able to speak English, of course, and Espanol. So that's one. That's the highest. What's the lowest? There are two categories for the lowest. And these two are German, and there were only 10% who were able to speak two other languages. We don't know which two, but two more than English. How about here? Again, Espanol was the highest. So that can be one very good significant point. We can say Spanish was the second most favorite language after English among these students of this particular university. And another trend, the lowest here is quite crowded. I see 3 categories: French, no other languages, and this one is German only. Oh, Another significant point might be that the number of students who were able to speak German remained constant, no change. Yeah, if nothing changes throughout the period, that can also be a significant point. You don't have to, when we say significant point, you don't have to look for something big and giant and enormous. No, it can be something that when you look at the entire diagram from a distance, you will realize that, oh, that's interesting. That catches your eye. That's key. That's what we really look for. So I'm ready to dive in. Let's look at the candidate's response. Okay, the pie charts compared the breakdown. We could say compare, but it's also fine. The breakdown in percentages of the UK students from a university who spoke a second language besides English. Just because a university is not a person, so this who refers to all the way to these students. I would have added 2 commas here, one before from, one after university, just to put the emphasis on who that refers to these UK students who spoke a second language besides English, divided into 6 categories. And the categories are no other languages, no other language. Can I take a peek? Yes, no other language, that's correct. French only, German only, Spanish only, another language, and 2 other languages. In Great Britain, in the year 2000 and 2010, maybe in the years 2000 and 2010. Overall, the desire to speak, not words, the desire to speak another language, 2 other languages, another comma here, and Spanish increased in 2010. And Spanish only, I don't need this comma, was the dominant group in both years. Instead of in both the given years, in both, you can say in both years, and that's simple, or in the given years, or in the years given, if you want a higher control and flexibility over your grammar. So basically, I like this introduction. It's a very large one, but I understand because we had to go ahead and explain the categories, so just almost a line. I mean, it's more than a line, but you devote just to introduce the categories, which is fine. It's a good practice. And we also mentioned all the small elements and details. The Great Britain is there, the years are there, the place is there. We also talk about a university. We really don't know what university it is, and it's accurately titled with the indefinite article a. So all the elements I wanted to see are present here. I just fixed a couple of commas here and there, and that's all. Now let's move on to the body paragraph, which looks thinner than the introduction. It's, I mean, we don't have any rules for that, or there's nothing against it. We don't have anything. This is just a body paragraph, but usually a body paragraph is larger in size than the conclusion and the introduction. And in this case, it's not. It's just a little bit alarming. I wonder what made this happen. So I'm going to read together, you and I, we're going to read this and we're going to improve it and see what happens. To begin with, okay, the percentages the percentage, it's just one, of the three groups. It should be the percentages of the three groups, because let me see. Spanish only, another language, and two other languages increased in 2010. All right, this is the first sentence. Number one issue is that we say the three groups and we do not yet introduce that. We have to define which three groups we're talking about. And then we go ahead and define it, but it is punctuated incorrectly. If we use parentheses, it means that you're telling the reader, me, that, hey, Kasra, it's just extra information. Don't worry about it. If you don't want to read it, don't read it. Move on. It's fine. That is not the message we want to say. We want to say, these are the three groups. Which groups? Let me define them, but then I can skip it. This element is it must be a necessary part of the definition, so we don't need parentheses. Instead, we could use IE. So we need comma, I, dot or period, E, another period. And then we have Spanish only, another language, and two other languages. We need to show to our reader that when we define, we mean it. You have to stay with me so that I can define the three groups for you. The category of Spanish only, this is the subject. There must be no punctuation marks between the subject and the verb. Topped the chart at 30%. Okay, we started looking at numbers. I need to check the validity. So let's have the chart here. Okay. The category of Spanish only topped the chart at 30% in 2000. The chart 2000, Spanish only, 30%. And stayed at the highest percentage by 5% increase in 2010. Correct. And this is correct. I wouldn't put a punctuation mark here because we are still on the same topic. We are still talking about the Spanish only category. Similarly, another language spoken group comprised 15%. We don't need this. 15% in 2000. However, it made up 20% of the total in 2010. Why do we use however here? 15% is the opposite of 20%? 15% increased to 20%, that's correct. But at the same time, the previous sentence says the same thing. We went from 30 to 35. This time we go from 15 to 20. So in both cases, we had the same pattern. I do not see any contradiction. I do not see any opposite here. Likewise, I don't need this comma. In 2010, the group of two other languages accounted for 15% in comparison to 10% in 2000. So in 2000, two other languages was 10%, and in 2010 it was 15%. It is, we can say likewise, it is the same trend. We go from 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 30 to 35. I love this pattern. This paragraph should have been called the paragraph for the ones that increased only 5%. So that would have been a logical approach. You put these three items, the two other languages category, another language category, and Spanish only category into the category which increased from 2000 to 2010. That sounds great. That would be one paragraph. Let's move on to the other body paragraph, which is the last body paragraph. So everything happens here. This is it. with regard to, regards is something else, is another word. With regard to the remaining categories, the percentages of the other groups declined in 2010. Now that's a good opening, except for the group of German only, which had the same percentage at 10% in both years. This is just extra word. In the years mentioned in the question. Again, just extra words. You could say in the aforementioned years. Simple. This is a very good opening. I wouldn't include the exceptional right off the bat, right in the intro of this paragraph. I wouldn't put it there. But that would just be something for higher school. In 2000, the group of no other language was the second highest percentage by 20%. Let's see. In 2000, no other language was 20%. And 10 years later, I need a comma before and this time because now the subject changes. The previous one was the information regarding 2000. The second part is about 2010. This proportion declined to half the previous percentage. Correct. French-only speakers decreased from 15% to 10% in 2000 and 2010 respectively. That is also correct. All right. Now, let's move back to our original view. Cool. I have a little bit issue with the organization and the presentation of this report. We look at the categories as names, and we didn't give it much context. If you look at the chart, I would have taken a different approach. The ideal one would be to give some context and some meaning to these categories. These are not any categories. No other language categories is a bit mechanical. Let's look at the black piece, for instance. We could say 20% of the students in this particular university in England didn't know any other languages other than English. However, this number changed dramatically in 2010, and the percentage was cut in half. That means that you care about the nature of the report, the nature of the categories that you have. And you no longer look at these categories as just categories. So I can replace everything with vegetables or fruits. I can say apples, oranges, pears, bananas, kiwis, peaches, and I can write the exact same report. And I could say 20% of the fruit eaten by the students in that particular university was apple, whereas kiwi comprised only 15%. That is mechanical. It is mechanical when you can basically report every data without looking at the soul of the data. Now, please be careful because it's a very delicate move. When you look at the soul, we do not need to add information. We cannot add extra information. We cannot speculate. We cannot suggest, give advice, predict. We are not allowed to do any of that. What I'm saying, if you're looking for a very high score, higher than 7 even, you need to look at the soul of the information. These are human beings, and we're talking about languages. They're not some vegetables or fruits or, I don't know, some category, some items that have 20% of it in 2000, but in 2010 it became 10%. That is a key and is an interesting takeaway maybe for you in this session. On that note, What do you say we look at the band descriptors? All right, so we covered pretty much the requirements of the task. And we, of course, adequately, again, anything is like minimal. We could extend them fully, but there is no missing information, thank God. But the information needed to be better appropriately selected. I did not see a conclusion. So there's paragraphing doesn't matter, but I did not see a conclusion. I did not see an issue with referencing. The referencing elements were more punctuation errors, and they needed to be fixed. I, however, saw bad practice on discourse markers, like the inaccurate use of however in the middle. The organization was logical, but it wasn't sequential. And also, there is a clear progression only throughout, but I wanted something deeper and with more detail. I didn't see that for a higher score. I also saw some errors in vocabulary choice. I did not see errors that would impede my understanding, but there were a few errors, especially in punctuation. So in general, this report can get a 6, and to improve it, things that I told you in this 20-something minutes is not enough. It needs more. And that's why I'm putting a link in the description below. You will have access to the improved version of this report on the IELTS Juice website. Once there, you need to scroll down to see the improved version right below the assessed version. And if you have any questions, write them in the comments below. My colleagues and I will answer you in a matter of hours. And on that note, I hope you have had wonderful takeaways. Remember, you need to work on your essays, reports specifically, to make sure that they will be an awesome representative for you. Take care.